Oh, my lovely law humans. Oh, thank you for returning to my little summary highlight reel update of trial day 2 of the Karen Reed second trial. We are back starting with Carrie Roberts from where he picked up. So, Carrie Roberts has been, in my opinion, from the last trial and this trial, the most reliable of the eyewitnesses who were there, because the other person who was there was Jen McCabe. And I'm just going to be straightforward with it. I didn't like Jen McCabe. She has been my least favorite witness. Does my opinion about her matter one but to another? Absolutely not. There is nothing about my opinion that influences anything whatsoever. I'm just letting you know for transparency's sake. And I'm talking about transparency, not a legal expert in any way. I am watching as an outside juror, and that's where we're going to go with. So, watching this trial go through, I ended up having to watch it really late last night. I was on a work position that didn't let me listen to it during work today, which I was really upset by. But anywho, Carrie Roberts has been the most straightforward and linear, and I think it's because she was not a part of the Albert McCabe group, so she doesn't have much to hide. Now, I say the word much very intentionally. So during direct examination, it was, here's what happened. I got a call at 5 in the morning, and it was very linear, very easy to read. She's a woman who is upset that her very, very dear friend got lost. It was somebody that she went to high school with, that she was around a lot. They played similar sports and hung out. And she said, but they really didn't start to get close until adulthood, when he adopted his niece and nephew, because then she was one of the people who helped take care of the niece and nephew along with his parents. So she was close to his parents, close to his family. And they lived down the street from each other. So it was very much and her son and John O'Keefe's nephew were good friends, best friends. And so it was hey, can you pick so-and-so up from school? Can you do the drop-off at the sports things? I'm running to the store. Do you need anything? Oh, you're just going to need to go to John's. I'm still doing something over here. It was that very close, just intermingled friendship relationship. And it was very nice. And she was very upset, very distraught. We were all crying when she was given the testimony about seeing John for the first time in the snow, uncovering his face in the snow. And she was very distraught when she went to the hospital, because she said that she was under the impression that when he was in the hospital, she expected him to look better. And he didn't look better. He looked much worse. Both of his eyes had become swollen and looked like they were swelled with blood, because they were that purple blood under the skin color. They were both swollen. His eyes were closed, looked like they couldn't open even if he could open them, or even if he wanted to open them. He was in a neck brace, and she described a very unpleasant scene. And she was tearing up, and it seemed like genuine emotion. There were genuine tears, needed a tissue, had to take a couple seconds to calm down, etc. So I thought it was overall a very good, straightforward thing. But then we got into cross-examination. Now, this is new from last time. She was not cross-examined last time. And she is a neutral witness. She has some things that are good for the defense. She has some things that are good for the prosecution. But what was great for the defense was when we have the discovery that at every single police interview that Carrie Roberts had with law enforcement, Jen McCabe was present. She tried to say, well, she was in the other room. I don't think she could hear us. But we already know, spoiler, from Jen McCabe's testimony last time, that she could hear and was reporting to other people what Carrie was saying to law enforcement officers. So she was within earshot and able to hear what was going on. In fact, she was accused of purposefully eavesdropping by the defense, and she took a lot of offense to that. Back to this trial. Carrie Roberts said at every single interview that she had, and right before her grand jury interview, that John's mother asked them to make a timeline of what happened because she wanted to know what happened to her son, her second son her second child that passed away. What happened? So Carrie and Jen, who were there, and Jen, who was with them at the waterfall and stuff the night before, they went through and made a timeline together of what happened to their friend, Jen and Carrie Roberts. And then it comes out that during the grand jury, where Karen Read was indicted based on what witnesses had said, that Carrie Roberts made a false statement. It's up to the jury. It's up to you to decide if it's intentional or not intentional. The defense was heavily implying that it was intentional because she said in the grand jury testimony, the question posed to her was, did you hear Karen Read ask Jen McCabe anything when you were in the police cruiser? And Carrie Roberts said, yes, she asked Jen to Google hypothermia and hypothermia. That's what her answer was. But she didn't actually hear it. It wasn't in any report. And she came forward. She didn't try to be defensive or twisted or anything. She was just like, yeah, okay, I didn't actually hear Karen ask Jen anything. But I saw Jen on the phone, and when we went over the timeline, Jen told me that Karen asked her that. So she didn't hear it, and she was like, well, I knew that was what happened, so that's why I said it at the grand jury. And Alan Jackson said, how could you have known that, Miss Roberts? You didn't hear it. You were told it. And I think that really goes to that Carrie Roberts was very much just believing Jen McCabe, and they're going to be able to connect Jen McCabe to every single thing that Carrie Roberts said. In fact, when the redirect happened and Brennan came back up to ask her questions, he made a slip up and said, when you were being interviewed, and then when it was time for her to get off the stand, the judge slipped up and said, okay, you're free to leave Miss McCabe, because Jen McCabe's name had come up so much in relation to her testimony. The next person who was called was John's mother. New witness, didn't have this witness at all. And I don't think that Peggy O'Keefe did as much for the Commonwealth as they thought she would. She once again gave a very human emotion to and human element to John. She also had everybody crying at the loss of her son. It was hard. It was not good. Just heartbreaking, and it was not fun. I'm gonna need a minute. Hold on. Okay, we're back. We're good. So she gave her emotional testimony about things, and when they went to the hospital, Carrie Roberts had picked up Peggy and Mr. O'Keefe and went to the hospital. And when they went to the hospital, they saw Karen Read there. Now, Karen Read at this point had been dating, or at least on-off dating, John O'Keefe for the past 2 years. And John O'Keefe's mom saw her son's girlfriend and went, what's she doing here? She asked one of the workers, what's she doing here? I think it would be natural that the girlfriend and person who was staying with your son would be at the hospital when he was sent there for an emergency. Like, is that weird to anybody else? But I think that really represents an overall aloofness and a not, like, there wasn't a connection. It gave to me the vibes of Peggy O'Keefe did not like Karen Reed. And so seeing her at the hospital, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's my son's girlfriend. Oh, come here, Karen. There wasn't any of that, like, connection or hugging or reuniting or bonding. It was, what's she doing here? And when she was described as how she was doing, she said she was just loud. She was just loud. It wasn't concern. It wasn't upset. It wasn't frantic or panic. It was just loud. And I think that also adds to this emotional disconnect that John's mom had to his girlfriend, Karen Reed. Then it also bolstered, there was no cross-examination. Alan Jackson was very respectful. He went up to the podium and said, I'm very sorry for your loss, Mrs. O'Keefe. I have no questions. She was allowed off of the stand. Then we had Brennan. He's the king of reach in arguments, and he was reaching again when he tried to bring in some video clips. Now, the first video clip he brought in, the defense was like, oh yeah, bring that in. At first, Alan Jackson was going to object, but it was a different clip that he was objecting to, and the judge was like, no. That clip that we just watched, you're arguing that and that alone. He was like, oh yeah, that can come in. I don't care if that comes in. And it's because in the clip from an interview that Karen Reed had, I can't put the clip in here, I think because of copyright things, but I will link to you where you can check it out. She was saying that when she was at the John O'Keefe's house after the incident at One Meadows, she wasn't there very long, and then she left. And it was because she said the family was there, and she was under the impression that the O'Keefes didn't want her there, that it was uncomfortable and tense. And based on what Peg O'Keefe had just said about what's she doing here at the hospital, I think that rang very true in that interview of the Commonwealth tried to make the argument that shows consciousness of guilt. She was making a ruse. Oh, I was uncomfortable at my boyfriend's house with his family. That it's a ruse for her to escape with the murder weapon, which is the Lexus. She needed to get away from the scene. That's what he said. The scene of the crime is not John's house, One Meadows. The scene of the crime is Fairview, the Alberts' house. I digress. He was like, she was trying to escape the scene with the murder weapon, and she needed to come up with an excuse to do it. And the Commonwealth, the defense was like, yeah, we can have that clip come in because it explains, especially with Peg O'Keefe's testimony, there was tension, there was discomfort, and so she was like, I need to not be here anymore. I'm unwanted. No one wants me here, and I really don't want to be here. None of us need this right now. And so she left. And they otherwise wouldn't have been able, they being the defense, wouldn't have been able to bring those clips in. They can't bring clips in for their defendant. If they want statements from the defendant, she has to take the stand. But with the prosecution bringing the clips in, they get an explanation without the defendant taking the stand. It benefits them all around. The other clip that they wanted brought in was it was an outtake. So the next clip that they wanted in was actually an outtake from one of the interviews. and she was mocking John's mom. Apparently in the clip, she was saying things in a very aggressive tone, saying that when John O'Keefe's mother, Peg, was talking to Karen Reed, she was like, it looked like he got hit by a car. It looked like he got hit by a car. And it is worth noting that Karen Reed does not have a Boston, Massachusetts accent. So by her doing that, she was mocking the accent that John O'Keefe's mother has. And that's just not a good look. And he said this, and Brendan was like, this proves consciousness of guilt. And the defense said, it just makes Karen look like an a-hole. They didn't use that exact words, but they were like, it's to vilify her. It's to make her look bad. There is no, having her say that John O'Keefe's mom said John looks like he got hit by a car is not an admission of guilt of what someone else said, and you can't bring evidence in to impeach somebody in Massachusetts, and even if you could, you're impeaching somebody who's their own witness, because Peg said that she never said that. So, and that's not anything my client said. She's using hearsay of what someone else said. That's not an admission of guilt. This is just to make her look bad. And it would make her look really bad after that very emotional and slow testimony from Peg O'Keefe, hearing Karen Reed say, my son looks like he got hit by a car. Like, that's exactly how she did that. It just makes her look bad. It makes her look insensitive. And I don't think that clip's going to get to come in. But of course, we couldn't get a ruling from the bench with Judge Canone. She's going to take it under submission. She has to think about it. The next witness who we have brought in is the Massachusetts Police Department, Mr. Officer Nicholas Guarino. Mr. Guarino is kind of infamous. I will put the clip below. I'll see if I can try to get it up here. I'm not that good at editing, I'm sure you know. But anyway, I will definitely have the clip below because he had a hot mic moment in the last trial. He seemed exasperated from being interviewed by Lally. Prosecutor Lally was a very droning person, shall we say? And under his breath, but into a microphone, Officer Guarino said, kill me. And it went pretty viral. Like, you really don't need him saying that stuff. Especially when he is the Celebrate expert. He is the person who is in charge of extracting data from the phones. So you think he would understand recording mechanisms of a microphone in front of his face? I digress. It was kind of a funny clip from last time. You gotta have some levity in these very serious things, otherwise we'd never make it through the day. So he's taking the stand. We started with some direct examination. He's going through his background of the classes he has to take. And here's what we learned. We learned that it can take years to break into a cell phone if your passcode is more than 6 digits, just because of the increased amount of possible passcode. I'm trying to think of the word. Just because of all the possibilities for that pattern, it could take a really long time if your passcode is more than 6. They're a lot easier at getting those patterns of what they could be if it's less than 5. Most people's are 4. Just because it's convenient to boom, boom, boom. But if it's boom, 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 it's a lot more difficult and can take years. And if you have information on your phone that you don't want somebody to find out, up that passcode. Apparently, we're not here to teach you how to crime. That is what that was being discussed in the testimony. He said it can take a really long time to get into people's phones if they don't give you the passcode. especially if it's longer. If it's more than 6, it could take years. So that was what was discussed there. And that is where we ended our testimony, with all of the big points being Jen McCabe was everywhere Carrie Roberts was. They didn't interview anyone separately. There was a timeline discussed that absolutely influenced and made Carrie Roberts make a false statement to the grand jury from what Jen McCabe told her. And it also ties into not only a conspiracy that Jen was massively a part of, but it's also going to tie into these cops didn't know what they were doing. So, yeah. And that Peg O'Keefe did not like and has no love lost for Karen Read. So, that is where we end. And you know what? That's not bad. 21 minutes for an 8-hour court day. Let's see what day 3 brings us. I can't wait. Stop. I almost forgot. I was really tired when I was watching the end of this. They did bring in a fireman at the end of it, and I did not write down his name. I can barely read my little scribbles. I was sleepy. But they did bring in a fireman who was driving the truck. So he was interviewed. He was I don't remember much from him. It didn't seem, I wrote down that he gave his background, his timeline seemed linear. And his cross-examination was just, what did you hear? Did you see anyone praying over a body? Blah, blah, blah. Most of this testimony did contradict what the first paramedic said, because no one else brought up anything from, and it counters what Trooper Proctor, former, brought into his report from the first paramedic, too. But yeah, I believe we're going to continue with that witness maybe for a brief time, and then we'll get into the rest of the witnesses. Good stuff. I'm still waiting for Jen McCabe. Oh, it's going to be such. Everything's hitting the fan soon. I'll see you then, my lovely humans. Bye.